Thank you, Father, and go Broncos. The Senate will come to order. Mr. Schaffler, please call the roll.
Senators Amabile, Baisley, Ball, Bridges, Bright, Carson, Catlin, Cutter, Danielson, Danielson,
Excuse.
Doherty, Exum, Frizzell, Frizzell, Gonzalez, Hendrickson, Jaquez Lewis, Judah, Kip, Kirkmeyer, Colker, Liston, Lundeen, Marchman, Michelson Genet, Mullica, Pelton B, Pelton R, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson, Snyder, Sullivan, Sullivan,
Excused.
Wiseman, Winter. Mr. President.
Let's do this. The morning roll call is 33 present, 0 absent, and 2 excused. We have a quorum. Senator Kipp, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mr. President. If everybody would please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the journal. Senator Carson. Senator Carson.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate Journal of February 7th, 2025 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You've heard the motion. What say you? All those in favor say aye. No. All those opposed, no? No. Man, weird votes this morning, but the ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Senate Services.
Correctly engrossed Senate Bills 59, 60, and 82. Correctly revised House Bill 1054 and 1076.
Third reading of bills. Consent calendar. Mr. Schaffler, please read the titles of all the bills on the consent calendar.
Senate Bill 60 by Senators Catlin and Roberts and Representative Clifford concerning expanding the crime of obstructing government operations to include the repeated calling of public safety emergency entities without justifiable cause. Senate Bill 82 by Senators Gonzalez and Frizzell and Representatives Joseph and Soper concerning the enactment of the Colorado Revised Statutes 2024 as the positive and statutory law of the state of Colorado. House Bill 1076 by Representatives Basnicker and Lindsay and Senators Cutter and Simpson concerning documents related to the division of motor vehicles. House Bill 1054 by Representative Basnicker and Senators Pelton R. and Gonzalez concerning repealing the requirement that the Legislative Audit Committee cause to be conducted performance reviews of the Automobile Inspection and Readjustment Program every 5 years.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage of all the bills on third reading of bills consent calendar, which include Senate Bill 60, Senate Bill 82, House Bill 1076, and House Bill 1054.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of all the bills on the third reading of the bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes? Senator Baisley.
Good morning, Mr. President. Thank you. I ask to be counted as a no vote on House Bill 1054, please.
Senator Baisley will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1054. Any other no votes? Seeing none, with a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused. Senate Bill 60 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Bridges, with a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 82 is passed. Co-sponsors. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, House Bill 1076 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Henriksen, Michelson-Janae, Winter, Jaquez Lewis, Marchman, with a vote of 32 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, and 2 excused, House Bill 1054 is passed. Co-sponsors. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side, I move for the reconsideration of Senate Bill 60.
The motion is a reconsideration of Senate Bill 60. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The motion for reconsideration is granted. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of Senate Bill 60.
Senate Bill 60 by Senators Catlin and Roberts and Representative Clifford concerning expanding the crime of obstructing government operations to include the repeated calling of public safety emergency entities without justifiable cause.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 60.
Any discussion on Senate Bill 60? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 60 on third reading of Bill's consent calendar. Are there any no votes? Who wanted to be a no? Okay. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 60 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Marchman, Pelton R., Frizzell, Pelton B., Bridges, Carson, Mullica, Liston, Doherty, Kipp, Snyder, Michelson-Janae, Judah, third reading of bills, final passage. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 59 until tomorrow, Tuesday, February 11th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 59 until tomorrow, Tuesday, February 11th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 59 will be laid over to tomorrow, Tuesday, February 11th. General orders. Second reading of bills. Senator Doherty. Come on down. Come on down to the microphone. Sounds beautiful, but even better on the mic. Come on down. Somebody start playing Price is Right. No yelling. We all love each other here. Senator Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, And the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve in Committee of the Whole for the consideration of General Order segment of the bills, and Senator Doherty will take the chair.
Script too.
The committee will come to order, and the court roll is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 62?
Senate Bill 62 by Senators Hendrickson and Wiseman and Representatives Carter and Burr concerning contempt of court for failure to appear charges in municipal court.
Senator Wiseman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We move Senate Bill 62 and the committee report from Judiciary.
Thank you, Senator Wiseman. To the committee report.
Members, the committee report essentially is the bill. Senate Bill 62 seeks really only to do one thing, which is to provide that there should not in municipal court be a substantive criminal offense carrying time for incarceration or a money penalty simply for failure to appear. After extensive discussions with CML, we rewrote what was intended to try to make it a little bit more clear to everybody involved, and we ask for your support of the committee report.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. To the bill. Senator Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 62, as briefly spoken to by my colleague from Aurora, what it says is that there cannot be a contempt of court charge for failure to appear. Where we see this happening is in very low-level crimes, almost exclusively petty offenses at the municipal level, which carry a maximum sentence of 10 days of jail and $300 fine. But what happens is if you miss the court date, right now, one of the options is that we have a very, very small handful of municipalities in the state of Colorado that will add an additional charge of failure to appear. That charge carries a penalty of up to 364 days. And we have people who have been sitting in jail for more than a year in the Pueblo County Jail when the only actual substantive crime that they are committed carries a maximum sentence of 10 days. This disproportionately falls on those who are struggling with mental health and substance use disorders. It disproportionately falls on the homeless population. This bill removes that avenue. What it leaves in place is that when you fail to appear, a bench warrant will be issued, and then when you are arrested on that bench warrant, you will have to go before a judge. Your PR bond will be revoked, and new conditions will be set to ensure that you appear and answer for the underlying crime that is of which you are accused. So I ask for your aye vote on Senate Bill 62.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before. Oh, sorry. Senator Frizzell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had the great opportunity to hear this bill in Judiciary, and we had great testimony, lots of really horrific stories. And I completely understand why the bill sponsors wanted to bring this piece of legislation, especially because of what has happened in Pueblo. But my point is, and the reason why I'm standing here before you this morning, is that what this bill does is it legislates for what I would consider to be a few bad actors who have been overly punitive, and ties the hands of all municipalities so that they have to be subject to a uniform law. And every case can be different. You never know. It's important for municipalities to have the ability to respond for their community, not for the state. This has been dealt with in a myriad of ways all around the country. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not. One thing that we heard loud and clear in committee was that these, what I would call quote-unquote bad actors, who are being overly punitive with folks who may be homeless, may be mentally ill, may be unable to make their court dates. What's happening there is not the norm. Most of the other municipalities are handling these situations with the wisdom that they need, with the compassion that should exist in this system. We cannot tie the hands of our municipalities any more than we can tie the hands or should tie the hands of our counties or other local government entities, especially in matters like courts where they need to be able to respond according to the community wishes. I would love to be supportive of this bill, but unfortunately, I just feel that it broad brushes what is a very complex issue and puts the state, once again, in the driver's seat when it comes to policy for local government entities. So I urge you to join me in my no vote. Thank you.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, members, I did not hear this bill in committee because I don't sit on the committee, but I do have a question of the sponsors. I'm a little bit concerned that if a charged person is not appearing, will this stop the ability of the judge of handing down a more significant penalty? Because I have to believe that there are people who don't show up all the time, and they're not homeless, and they're not mentally ill. Will this tie the hands of the judicial officials to just limiting it to 10 days or whatever, because there are people who continue to thumb their nose at the judicial proceedings? And the old adage, 90% of winning is showing up. If you show up, you'll get your day in court. But if you're not showing up, there needs to be some repercussions. Can the bill sponsor please answer? Thank you.
Senator Weissman.
Sure, I appreciate the opportunity from the senator from El Paso County to kind of clarify what's going on here. So first of all, to be clear, we're only in the situation we're talking about for lower level offenses in municipal court in the first instance, things that would translate to a petty offense in state law, or that wouldn't translate at all because they're so low level. Where something more serious, assault, domestic violence, menacing, happens in municipal court, the court can set a money bond in the first instance and hold somebody if they fail to pay that. In the event, however likely or not, that one of those more serious municipal court offenses has first been granted a PR bond rather than money, failure to show as basis for the municipal court to revoke the PR bond and now institute a money bond in the second instance, even if that was not done. It is also possible, and different municipal courts make different choices about this, to hold somebody for 48 hours, even on one of these lower level offenses, provided that you bring the person to a judge or some other bonding commissioner or officer to just do the bond hearing in 48 hours. That 48-hour timeline is something that members of both parties have been working to sort of enforce for due process reasons in this legislature for many years. So that's just baseline, and that's never been what the bill is about, but so folks understand it. Now, turning to the bill, we are really only trying to say one thing. If you do not show up in court, that cannot be the basis for further jail time in the municipal code or per the municipal code. We talked about contempt of court. That is a judicial power, long has been, in state court and in city court. We are not changing that. We have never intended to change that. Part of the reason we did the amendment in committee is to be even more abundantly and redundantly clear that we are not changing that. So contempt of court by the judge is one power that the court has to bring somebody to answer for criminal justice process. Second power is to issue a bench warrant. That has been a power of the court, for a long time. We are not about changing that. Again, to be abundantly clear, like that was the basis for the amendment. Outside the four corners of the bill, we've also done work in a bipartisan way over the years about court-based text reminder programs. It's a small thing. It actually makes a difference. The data shows that. You have an appointment with your dentist, we're all busy. A little text from their system might help you not space out and get there on time. Some courts choose to do that too. We have deliberately made the statutes in our state court administrator broadly enough so that a municipality can work with the judicial branch to build their system that way. But bringing it back to what we're talking about here, we're talking about low-level offenses that would have at most 10 days jail time if folks are even doing time. There is a high incidence of people who are homeless, who have transportation issues, who have mental health issues, things like that. When we think about the limited resources that we have in the state and in our local governments, every jail, even big ones like mine in Arapahoe County and the one in El Paso County, have a limited number of beds. If we're going to be putting people in those jails on municipal offenses, I think it is a better outcome for public safety to use those limited spaces for people who commit assault or menacing or domestic violence or things like this, and not to fill up the jail beds at a cost to our local governments with people who are mentally ill or mixed up in drugs due to whatever life has done to them. So there are consequences that can be meted out by the court if somebody fails to come before the court and answer for what they have to answer for. We've never been about changing that. And again, the amendment is to make even more clear that we're not changing that. I should note, because I don't think we've said it yet, there's litigation going on about some of these practices in some courts around the state. Frankly, municipalities are losing. There are due process issues involved. So part of what we're doing here is to try to get ahead of the curve. It was stated previously, we're laying down a statewide rule or principle, and that is literally what state legislating is to make uniform standards across the state. We believe this is the appropriate and constitutional uniform standard for our municipal courts to be following, and we ask for a yes vote.
Senator Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't sit on the judiciary, but I do have some concerns with this bill. While it does maintain a court's ability to ensure compliance via the issuance of a bench warrant, this bill raises significant concerns about encouraging individuals to forego their court appearance. That could be an unintended consequence somewhere down the road, because individuals may feel inclined to appear in court. There's no repercussions there. In a state such as ours, where the laws are already routinely flouted and accountability is already at risk, I think additional leniency may have dire consequences, and because of that, I'll be a no today. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, the motion before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 62. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The bill is adopted. Majority Leader Rodriguez. I need to go. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
Senate will come to order. Senator Doherty.
I move the adoption of the report.
So say, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr.
The
President.
committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration.
I move the adoption of the report.
Will the clerk please read the report? Say, will the clerk please read the report? Will the clerk please read the report?
Will the clerk please read the report?
February 10, 2025. Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 62, as amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Now, Senator Doherty, you can move the report.
I move the adoption of the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 2 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 62 is amended, passed in second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Consideration of resolutions. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of HJR 25-1008.
House Joint Resolution 1008 by Representatives Armagost and Byrd and Senators Michelson, Janae, and Pelton B. concerning designating the third week of September as co-responder units and behavioral health crisis professionals week in Colorado.
Senator Michelson, Janae.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Joint Resolution 1008. Oh, you first.
No, that's right. Is there any discussion? Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we're just bringing this resolution to bring awareness to how important the co-responders program is to behavioral health in our communities when a police officer needs help. It's not always, a police officer is not a mental health professional, and I have been told by several of my sheriff's deputies, including my sheriff in Logan County, that he is not a mental health professional, and there are occasionally times that they need help. And the co-responder program is a great program to be able to offer that asset with the police officers when they show up and they need that assistance.
Senator Michelson, Janae.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this is a week that's celebrated in September, so we are not here. So we are just recognizing that week and honoring that week for those co-responders and mental health crisis professionals with whom we could not live without. So thank you to all co-responders and mental health crisis professionals.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of HJR 25-1008. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 2 excused, HJR 25-1008 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Michelson, Janae.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Mr. Schaffler, will you please read the title of SJR 25006?
Senate Joint Resolution 006 by Senators Henderson and Ball and Representatives Camacho and Carter concerning condemnation of the pardons of those involved in the January 6, 2021 insurrection against the United States of America.
Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Joint Resolution 006 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Schaffler, please read SJR 25006 at length.
Whereas on January 6, 2021, at a rally at the Ellipse outside the White House, President Trump, following months of lies about widespread voter fraud, claimed the election had been stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats and told rally attendees, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. And whereas following President Trump's speech at the Ellipse, rally attendees marched to the United States Capitol and many began rioting, with official FBI estimates concluding that between 2,000 and 2,500 people forcibly and illegally breached the Capitol in what many scholars have described as an attempted self-coup and an insurrection. And whereas insurrectionists sought to prevent and successfully postpone the proceedings of the constitutionally mandated joint session of Congress to certify the electoral college results of the freely and fairly conducted 2020 presidential election, and whereas insurrectionists openly called for violence against political figures, including chants calling for the hanging of Vice President Mike Pence, and whereas a gallows and noose were erected on Capitol grounds during the insurrection, and whereas undetonated pipe bombs were found after the attack outside both the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee headquarters, and whereas due to the heroic efforts of Capitol police officers, the Vice President and all members of Congress were successfully evacuated from the Capitol before the insurrectionists breached the Senate chamber and attempted unsuccessfully to breach the House chamber, and whereas insurrectionists attacked Capitol police officers with brass knuckles, pickaxes, tomahawks, flagpoles, pepper spray, knives, fire extinguishers, stolen police riot shields, batons, fencing, destroyed furniture, and other makeshift weapons, and whereas multiple insurrectionists were later charged with or convicted of illegally carrying firearms during the attack, and whereas there is a widespread evidence of premeditated online coordination of the insurrection between the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and 3%ers, which are organizations that have been cited as extremist groups by both the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Anti-Defamation League, and whereas one Capitol police officer died from a stroke brought on by the injuries he sustained from multiple assaults by insurrectionists, and whereas 4 Capitol police officers who defended the Capitol later died by suicide, and whereas at least 174 Capitol police officers were injured, 15 of whom required hospitalization, and whereas $2.7 million in damages were caused to the Capitol building and grounds, and whereas following a request from District of Columbia Mayor Muriel Bowser, 1,100 Washington, D.C. National Guardsmen were called up to restore peace and security to the Capitol and its grounds, and whereas on January 20th, 2025, President Trump pardoned or commuted the sentences for all insurrectionists who were convicted of crimes committed during the January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol, and ensured that cases were dismissed for those who faced charges or were under investigation for participation in the attack. And whereas the rule of law, respect for the results of a free and fair election, and freedom from political violence are foundational cornerstones of the United States Constitution and core tenets of freedom and the American way of life. And whereas those pardoned erode the rule of law and signal an acceptance of political violence so long as the violence was committed by those who support President Trump, and whereas such acceptance desecrates the service and sacrifice of those who have defended the Constitution against such enemies, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the 75th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, 1, that the 75th Colorado General Assembly hereby condemns the pardons of those involved in the January 6, 2021 insurrection against the United States of America, and 2, that the 75th Colorado General Assembly further condemns the firing of dedicated, selfless FBI agents assigned to said insurrection cases who committed their careers to the defense of our nation and its sovereignty. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to Governor Jared Polis and the members of the Colorado's congressional delegation.
Any discussion? Senator Henriksen.
Thank you. Colleagues, please be seated. Last week, we had Military Appreciation Day, and days of remembrance or celebration of military service and sacrifice are difficult ones for me. For the better part of a decade and a half, I've struggled with PTSD. It comes and goes, but periods of high stress, personally or professionally, tend to exacerbate it. So do things like Memorial Day, Military Appreciation Day, other formal ceremonies recognizing service and sacrifice. I find it impossible in those times to escape the more difficult memories of my time in service. And that's fine. That's my thing to deal with, because it's right and necessary for us to honor, to celebrate, to take pause and remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. It's especially right to do so in a bipartisan manner, to set aside our philosophical differences for something way more important. This year, however, in the wake of the mass pardons for those who engaged in insurrection against our nation, in an attempt to overturn a free and fair election, in an attempt to overthrow the Constitution that millions of Americans have fought for, and over the arc of our nation's history, 1.2 million have died for, it just hits different. And so this year I skipped the ceremony. June 6, 2011 was the worst day of my life. In the early morning hours, a contingent of Promise Day Brigade fighters launched over 30 rockets into Camp Loyalty, a small U.S. Army base on the outskirts of Sadr City in Baghdad. Within minutes, 5 soldiers from the 1/7 Field Artillery Regiment were dead. Over a dozen more were wounded. 2 weeks later, another soldier would succumb to his injuries sustained in that attack. I knew these men. One of them was my next-door neighbor. 1 week prior to the attack, I had been tapped to assume the role of the Brigade Transportation Support and Planning Officer of the 2-1 Armored Brigade Combat Team. I was responsible for coordinating the transportation and logistical support for the brigade, of which the 1/7 Field Artillery was a subordinate unit. Colleagues, please, thank you. Please go ahead and be seated. And so for the next week, I was working to coordinate nonstop convoys to resupply and reinforce Camp Loyalty. But immediately, one of my responsibilities was helping to coordinate the transportation of our fallen soldiers to Sather Air Base so that they could be flown back to the United States. At 2 o'clock in the morning of June 7th, I stood on the tarmac at Sather and received the convoy that was carrying those remains. Together with the soldiers of that convoy, we draped each coffin with the American flag and rendered the final salute to each fallen soldier as they were loaded on to the C-17 back to Dover Air Force Base. On the morning of January 20th, 2025, when news of the pardon spread, I got a text from a friend of mine who was there with me on the tarmac of Sather Air Force Base. He was the one who commanded the convoy to bring those remains to Sather Air Force Base. Those early morning hours of May 7th, 2011. His message was this: pretty obvious that I sacrificed my youth and my friends sacrificed their lives for a lot of Americans who are truly and unequivocally unworthy of those sacrifices. And as was the case with my friend, in the moment, I sympathized with that sentiment. I have heard the mental contortions used to justify the insurrection and to justify those pardons. It was a protest. Maybe it was actually Antifa. The election really was stolen. Those are lies. Every justification to either endorse or sidestep what happened on January 6, 2021 is rooted in lies. And so, colleagues, if we cannot, regardless of party, muster the courage to speak with truth about the greatest assault on this Constitution from within our own citizenry in 160 years, or to condemn the aid and comfort now given to its enemies, who sought to render the sacrifices of those who gave their lives in its defense to have been in vain, then any words of solemnity for that sacrifice are nothing but hollow, insulting utterances. I have no desire to sit and smile politely for such a performance, and I'm asking for a bipartisan aye vote on Senate Joint Resolution 006.
Any further discussion? Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I find it shameful that resolutions would be used in a political manner. There are accusations here of a duly elected president, not only elected by the Electoral College majority, but by popular vote majority, who is taking an action. How many more actions that he takes will be objected by this body by way of resolution? I find this to be an inappropriate and shameful use of the resolution process and beneath the dignity of this legislative body. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of SJR 25006. Are there any no votes? Senators, Mr. Minority Leader Simpson, Frizzell, Catlin, Baisley, Rich, Liston, Pelton R., Carson, Bright, Kirkmeyer, Pelton B. With a vote of 21 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, SJR 25006 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senators, Mr. Majority Leader, Cutter, Weissman, Michelson Janae, Winter, Kip, Jaquez Lewis, Marchman, Colker, Bridges, Snyder, Judah, Amabile, Exum, Mullica, Doherty, Roberts. Please add the president. Consideration of governor's appointments. Consent calendar. Mr. Schaffler, please read the appointments listed on the consent calendar.
Members of the Board of Trustees for Western Colorado University, effective January 1st, 2025, for terms expiring December 31st, 2028. Alvina Maria Vasquez of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, reappointed. Chelsea Carver of Highlands Ranch, Colorado, appointed. Members of the State Board for Community Colleges and Occupational Education for terms expiring December 31st, 2028. Angelica Schroeder from Boulder, Colorado, to serve as a representative of the 2nd Congressional District, appointed. Stephen Trujillo of Pueblo, Colorado, to serve as a representative of the 3rd Congressional District, reappointed.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for confirmation of appointments listed on the consent calendar, which include Alvina Maria Vasquez, Chelsea Carver for the Board of Trustees for Western Colorado University, Angelica Schroeder and Stephen Trujillo for the State Board of Community Colleges and Occupational Education.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is a confirmation of the appointments and consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, those appointments are confirmed. Announcements. Members, I have one special announcement, and everybody should be recognized, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that it is somebody's very special birthday today. Please join me in a round of applause in celebration of birthday of the Secretary, Esther. That's not in my script. I don't want to get in trouble, so thank you for joining me in that. All right, Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make an announcement. Please join Transfer for breakfast and the demonstration of the year, our demonstration of career exploration and workforce development technology. Transfer is a workforce development and education platform utilized virtual reality. And so they're downstairs right now on the first floor. They're going to be here from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Please go check them out. It's pretty cool. My kids love virtual reality. I could never get into it myself, but it's a pretty cool thing. So please go visit them. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
You got it. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you have Valentines, happy to take them. All you have to do is fill out your address, and we'll take care of the postage, and we'll get them through the Loveland stamp this week. So today or tomorrow, if that's okay, today or tomorrow, or they'll be late. Thank you.
Senator Colker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Education Committee will be meeting today at 1:30 in room 357. We will not be hearing from the appointment for the University of Northern Colorado. from the School of Mines. We will be hearing from the UNC appointment, and then we have 2 bills.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you. Colleagues, as you wander around the Capitol today, actually none of you wander around the Capitol, as you move with purpose around the Capitol today, you may find some students, their chaperones, and leaders who are wandering around the Capitol, and I encourage you to say hello to them. Students from Rock Rimmon Elementary down in Colorado Springs, there are 71 students, 12 chaperones, and they're 4th graders, so be on the lookout for them. And from the University School, 20 students and 4 chaperones, 6th graders. So 4th graders, 6th graders, be on the lookout, encourage them, pause, and talk with them for a moment about the legislative branch of government, if you would. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I just wanted to give you an update on the first nuclear caucus that we had last Wednesday. We had 55 people show up, and to your credit, we had 15 or more legislators or their aides show up. So thank you very much. We have a top-notch speaker coming up here in a couple of weeks that you'll hear about. Thank you all for participating.
Any further announcements? Seeing none, Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we'll be keeping the desk open to read some bills across the desk, so no need to stay. On that note, Mr. President, I move that the Senate recess until 11:30 a.m.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is that we would recess until 11:30 a.m.